Kale had always thought that being human was both a blessing and a curse. On Earth, humans were clever, adaptable, and capable of great emotion. But in the wider galaxy, among civilizations that had evolved beyond flesh and weakness, humans were considered fragile, almost useless. That belief had followed him across the stars, as he had been captured during a trading expedition gone wrong, and sold at a market he had never imagined could exist. He had seen many strange things since leaving Earth. Planets with oceans of liquid metal, cities that floated in the air without visible support, and creatures whose bodies seemed to defy biology itself. But nothing had prepared him for the market on Xylar Prime. Here, creatures of all shapes and sizes walked among stalls filled with items that Kale could barely name, and in the middle of it all, humans were being sold like simple commodities. Kale tried to keep his fear under control. He had always known how to survive in difficult situations, and this was no different. Yet, the feeling of being surrounded by beings far stronger, faster, and smarter than him pressed heavily on his chest. He tried to blend in, but it was impossible. His human form alone made him stand out, and the eyes of the aliens followed him wherever he moved. It was then that Alira noticed him. She was taller than most of the creatures around her, her skin shimmering faintly with a color that shifted between violet and silver depending on the light. Her eyes were large and intelligent, and she walked with an elegance that made everyone else seem clumsy in comparison. Yet there was something about the way she looked at Kale that made him shiver, not fear exactly, but a strange, piercing curiosity. Kale was aware of the whispers around him. "A human, fragile, useless," one alien muttered. Another laughed, showing rows of jagged teeth. "Why waste your credits on that weak thing?" But Alira ignored them all. She moved closer to Kale, her gaze sharp and assessing, as though she were studying an unusual puzzle. "You," she said, her voice smooth and musical, "are far more interesting than the others." Kale blinked. He had expected anger, ridicule, maybe even pity, but curiosity, that was new. I don't understand," he stammered. "You will," Alira replied with a smile that was both intimidating and oddly kind. "I intend to buy you, not for the usual reasons. I want to understand you humans." The words were terrifying. Kale didn't know what she meant, but he knew enough about alien customs to understand that being bought meant he had little control over his own fate. Yet Alira did not treat him like the other buyers had treated the creatures in the market. She looked at him as though he were unique, and that thought gave him a small glimmer of hope in the middle of his fear. He was transferred to her estate, a vast, city-like compound built high above the clouds on stilts of unknown metal. The air was thick with energy, and the walls glowed faintly with alien technology. Everywhere he looked, he saw things that defied human understanding. Doors that opened without touch, floors that shimmered with moving patterns, and machines that seemed alive. Kale felt completely out of place, yet he knew that panicking would get him nowhere. He had to learn, adapt, survive, just as humans had done for thousands of years on Earth. Alira watched him closely. She did not speak much at first, allowing him time to explore, to observe, and to make mistakes. It was clear she was testing him, though not in a way that would harm him. Instead, she wanted to see how he reacted, how he thought, and perhaps most importantly, how he would adapt. The first test came sooner than Kale expected. He had been wandering a corridor lined with glowing panels when a sudden alarm sounded. Lights flashed red across the walls, and an artificial voice announced that a section of the estate had been breached. Alien guards rushed past him, but Kale froze, unsure of what to do. Alira appeared beside him in an instant. "Step aside," she commanded, her voice calm but firm. "Do not follow the guards blindly. Observe." Kale watched as a group of attackers, small, vicious creatures, attempted to access a secure area. The guards struggled to contain them, their advanced weapons seeming ineffective against the intruders' unpredictable movements. Kale's heart raced, but he did not run. He analyzed the situation, noticing patterns in the attacker's movements, timing in the guards' responses, and even subtle environmental weaknesses he could exploit. "Do you see it?" Alira asked, almost whispering. Kale nodded, and without thinking, he shouted instructions to the nearest guard, telling him exactly where to move to trap the attackers. To his surprise and relief, the guard followed his instructions. Within moments, the intruders were contained and the alarm ceased. Alira's eyes were wide, her lips curved into a faint smile. "Impressive," she said. "You are far more capable than I expected." Kale felt a surge of pride. For the first time since leaving Earth, he realized that being human was not just a liability. His instincts, his ability to think differently, and his determination had saved the day. Over the next few days, Alira continued to test him in subtle ways. She asked him to solve puzzles with alien technology, to communicate with creatures who did not speak his language, and to navigate areas that seemed impossible for anyone unfamiliar with the estate. Each time, Kale's human ingenuity shone through. He found solutions that the aliens had overlooked, used logic that seemed simple but effective, and displayed a kind of resilience that no machine or creature could match. Alira's fascination with him grew. She had purchased him expecting compliance, maybe curiosity, but never this level of skill and courage. She began to speak to him more often, asking questions not about survival or obedience, but about human thought, culture, and emotion. Kale, in turn, began to feel a strange connection to her, not trust exactly, but understanding. She was not cruel, not manipulative. She genuinely wanted to know what made humans unique. One evening, as the twin moons of Xylar Prime cast pale light over the estate, Kale and Alira sat together in a garden suspended high above the city. The plants glowed faintly, and small streams of liquid shimmered in midair, defying gravity. "You humans are fascinating," Alira said softly. "You are weak in form, yet strong in ways we cannot measure. You adapt, you survive, you care even when it is not logical to do so." Kale smiled faintly. "That's what makes us human. We do not give up even when the odds are against us. We think, we feel, we try." Alira nodded. "And yet most of your kind are considered insignificant by the galaxy. They do not understand your value." "That's why someone has to show them," Kale replied, his voice firm. "Someone has to remind them what humans are capable of." Alira studied him for a long moment. "Perhaps you are that someone," she said finally, and for the first time, Kale felt that he was not just a curiosity or a commodity. He was being seen, truly seen. Their moment was interrupted by a sudden alert. A rival faction from the city below was attempting to infiltrate the estate, drawn by the rumors of the human who had survived Alira's tests. Kale's heart pounded, but this time he did not panic. He knew he had a role to play. "Stay close to me," Alira instructed. "I want to see how far your human cleverness can go." Kale nodded, and together they moved through the estate, avoiding traps, redirecting guards, and using the environment to their advantage. Kale's mind raced, adapting quickly to alien technology and strategies. Every step, every decision highlighted the strengths of humanity: observation, logic, empathy, and courage. By the time the threat was neutralized, Alira's respect for Kale had grown into something deeper, an understanding that humans were not just fragile creatures, but beings capable of brilliance that even advanced civilizations could not anticipate. Kale, in turn, realized that his captivity had become an unexpected opportunity. He had always believed that survival meant hiding, adapting, and doing what was necessary to live. Now he saw that survival could also mean teaching, inspiring, and showing others the value of humanity. As the night settled over Xylar Prime, Kale looked out over the glowing city below, the twin moons reflecting in his eyes. He knew that his journey had only begun, but for the first time in a long time he felt a spark of hope. He was a human, yes, but he was also a survivor, a thinker, a fighter, and perhaps, just perhaps, he could change the way the galaxy saw his kind. Alira stood beside him silently, her presence both comforting and commanding. "You are unlike any human I have encountered," she said. "Perhaps unlike any being in the galaxy." Kale smiled faintly. "Maybe humans just need the chance to show what we can do." And in that moment, high above the alien city, among beings who had once thought humans were weak and insignificant, Kale felt the stirrings of something extraordinary. The galaxy had underestimated him, but they would not do so again. Kale had begun to settle into Alira's world, but he knew that acceptance here was fragile. The aliens who ran the market and the city below still whispered about him, mocking the idea that a human could be more than a curiosity. Most considered him weak, fragile, and unworthy of attention. But Kale was determined to prove them wrong, not just for himself, but for all humans who had ever been underestimated. Alira, too, had noticed the growing tension. Her fascination with Kale had deepened into a quiet admiration. He was clever, resourceful, and courageous in ways that surprised even her. But she also knew that the society around them would not accept his presence easily. The alien aristocracy valued strength above all else, and the idea that a fragile human could challenge their expectations was almost unthinkable. One morning, Alira called Kale to the main hall of her estate. The walls shimmered with alien patterns that shifted as if alive, and the air hummed with energy. Several high-ranking aliens waited there, their expressions a mixture of curiosity, doubt, and disdain. Kale's heart sank. He had expected this moment, but seeing it unfold in person was daunting. "These are my guests," Alira said, her voice calm but commanding. "They wish to test your abilities, human. Show them what you can do." Kale swallowed his fear. He had survived the market, adapted to Alira's estate, and demonstrated cleverness before. This was only another challenge. The aliens would attempt to judge him, measure him, and perhaps try to humiliate him, but Kale refused to back down. The first test was simple in appearance but complex in execution. A puzzle of alien energy orbs floated in the center of the room, each one reacting to a different frequency of sound and light. The aliens watched, expecting him to fail. Most humans would be unable to even identify the pattern, let alone manipulate it correctly. Kale studied the orbs, listening to the subtle vibrations in the air, observing the faint color shifts, and noticing the small gaps in their synchronization. He had no prior experience with this technology, but his mind worked differently than the aliens' logical but rigid approach. He experimented carefully, adjusting the sound he made and the movements of his hands. Minutes passed. The room was silent except for the soft hum of energy. Then, slowly, the orbs began to align, forming a perfect geometric pattern in midair. A ripple of astonishment swept through the audience. The aliens had not expected success, and their eyes widened as the orbs stabilized. Alira's eyes shone with approval. "Well done, Kale," she said quietly. "You see what they cannot." Kale felt a small surge of pride, but he did not gloat. He knew this was only the beginning. The next challenge would be harder. It came in the form of a simulation. Alira activated a holographic environment that resembled a city under siege. Alien attackers moved through the streets, and Kale was tasked with protecting civilians using only his knowledge and strategy. The aliens whispered among themselves, certain that the human would fail. Kale observed carefully. He noted the attackers' patterns, the limitations of the holographic defenders, and the environmental hazards he could use to his advantage. Using nothing more than quick thinking and improvisation, he rerouted the defenders, created distractions, and even led the attackers into traps that he had spotted in the holographic design. By the time the simulation ended, the city was secure, and the audience was stunned. They had expected chaos, failure, and human weakness, but instead, Kale had demonstrated skill, intelligence, and adaptability that even advanced alien minds could not replicate. Alira stepped forward, her expression one of quiet pride. "You are extraordinary, Kale," she said. "Not in strength, not in speed, but in the one quality many civilizations fail to value, cleverness paired with courage." The aliens murmured among themselves, a mixture of fear and begrudging respect in their voices. Some were skeptical, unwilling to fully admit a human could surpass them in any way. Others, however, were intrigued. They had underestimated humans for centuries, and this small, fragile being was challenging everything they thought they knew. The tension in the room was palpable, but Alira silenced it with a gesture. "This human is under my protection," she declared. "If you wish to challenge him, you will do so on my terms." Kale felt a mixture of relief and determination. He knew that challenges would continue, but now he had an ally, someone powerful who believed in him. Alira's trust was not given lightly, and he intended to honor it. Days passed, each filled with new tests. Some were physical, pushing Kale's endurance and agility to the limits. He learned to move with alien reflexes, to anticipate patterns in their technology, and to survive environments that would have crushed most humans. Other tests were intellectual, requiring him to solve complex problems, communicate with strange alien species, and negotiate situations where the rules were constantly changing. Through it all, Kale's human traits shone. His curiosity, empathy, and creativity allowed him to succeed in ways the aliens could not predict. He found solutions that seemed simple but were extraordinarily effective, using logic that was different from the rigid thinking of alien minds. He also showed bravery and moral courage, refusing to compromise his values even when the pressure to conform was immense. One evening, Alira approached Kale with a new challenge, one that combined all the skills he had developed. A rival faction from the city below had infiltrated the estate, seeking to capture him and discredit Alira. The attackers were intelligent, well-armed, and ruthless. Kale would have to protect himself, Alira, and the estate using every ounce of his knowledge, skill, and cunning. The night was dark, the sky lit only by the faint glow of the moons and the shimmering estate. Kale moved silently through the corridors, observing the attackers' patterns, listening for the slightest hint of movement. He directed Alira to safe zones, guided guards to critical points, and used the estate's strange technology to create obstacles for the intruders. The attackers were clever, but they had not anticipated Kale's human unpredictability. He thought quickly, improvising traps and strategies on the fly. One by one, the intruders were neutralized, either trapped or driven away without serious harm. By dawn, the estate was secure, and the audience, both the guards and the hidden alien observers, was left in awe. Alira looked at Kale, her eyes filled with a mixture of admiration and something deeper. "You have done what no one expected," she said. "You have shown that humans are not weak. You have proven that cleverness, courage, and empathy can overcome strength and technology." Kale smiled faintly. "I only did what I had to," he replied. "Humans survive, we adapt, we fight when necessary and protect when it matters." That statement seemed to resonate with everyone present. The whispers of doubt, the sneers of mockery, and the murmurs of disdain faded into silence. For the first time, humans were being seen as more than fragile creatures. They were beings capable of ingenuity, courage, and honor. Alira knew that Kale's success was not just personal. It was a statement to the galaxy, a challenge to centuries of prejudice. She had purchased him expecting curiosity, perhaps amusement, but what she found was far greater, a symbol of humanity's potential. As the days passed, Kale continued to grow, both in skill and confidence. He learned more about Alira, her world, and the alien societies that judged humans so harshly. And in turn, Alira learned more about humans, their strengths, their emotions, and the unbreakable spirit that had allowed them to survive countless dangers on Earth and beyond. One afternoon, while they walked through a garden suspended high above the estate, Kale spoke quietly. "Do you think the galaxy will ever understand humans?" he asked. Elira considered this for a moment. "Perhaps not all of it," she said. "But those who see you, those who witness your actions, cannot ignore your worth. You are changing minds already, Kale. You are proving that humanity is more than they have ever believed." Kale nodded. He knew the road ahead would be difficult. Alien societies were slow to change, and many would resist his presence and achievements. But he was determined. He had survived the market, conquered the estate's challenges, and earned the trust of one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Now he would continue to prove that humans were capable of greatness, even in a universe that doubted them. That night, Kale stood on a balcony overlooking the city below. The lights shimmered like stars, and the faint hum of alien technology filled the air. He felt a strange sense of calm, a rare moment of peace in a life that had been full of danger and uncertainty. But beneath that calm was a burning determination. The galaxy had underestimated humans. It had judged them by their physical weakness, their fragile forms, and their fleeting lifespans. But Kale knew the truth. Humans were clever, adaptable, and resilient. They could survive in impossible conditions, solve problems others could not, and inspire courage in those around them. And Kale would ensure that the galaxy never forgot it. As the twin moons cast their pale light over Xylar Prime, Kale felt a spark of hope and determination. The challenges would grow, the enemies would come, and the tests would continue. But he was ready. He was human, and that was more than enough to change the course of events in ways no one could predict. Elira watched him from the doorway, a faint smile on her face. "You are extraordinary," she said softly. "Perhaps the galaxy has finally found a human worthy of notice." Kale turned to her, his eyes reflecting determination and quiet pride. "Then let them watch," he said. "Let them see what humans can do." And in that moment, high above the city, surrounded by beings who had once doubted him, Kale knew that the story of humanity in the galaxy was just beginning. The galaxy was not always kind to those who were different. Kale had learned this quickly. On Xylar Prime, he had proven himself clever, brave, and adaptable. He had survived the market, navigated Elira's complex estate, and gained her trust and admiration. Yet he knew that acceptance among the wider alien civilizations would not come easily. Many still regarded humans as fragile, weak, and insignificant. That perception was about to be challenged in a way no one could ignore. A warning arrived at Elira's estate in the early hours of the morning. A fleet of unknown vessels had entered Xylar Prime's orbit. They were massive, armored ships, bristling with weapons, and their trajectory indicated hostile intent. The city below panicked, alarms blaring across the streets, while the estate's security systems immediately activated defensive protocols. Kale observed the monitors, analyzing the incoming threat. The fleet's speed, formation, and weapons were unlike anything he had seen before. Even advanced alien technology seemed strained in predicting their moves. The alien advisors muttered anxiously, uncertain of how to respond. Kale, however, felt a strange clarity. The situation was dangerous, yes, but it was a problem to be solved, a challenge that humans could face with courage and strategy. Elira stood beside him, her violet-silver eyes narrowed. "What do you suggest?" she asked. Kale took a deep breath. "We need to use both strategy and ingenuity," he said. "The attackers rely on brute force and intimidation. They expect us to react, not anticipate. We need to change that." He began outlining a plan. Using the estate's advanced technology, Kale suggested creating decoys, manipulating energy fields to disrupt the enemy's targeting systems, and coordinating the city's defenses in ways the attackers could not predict. The aliens were skeptical at first, but Elira's quiet confidence in Kale encouraged them to follow his lead. As the fleet approached, Kale moved quickly, issuing commands and adjusting the defense systems. He used his human intuition to anticipate the attackers, next moves, predicting patterns that even experienced alien tacticians could not see. The decoys worked perfectly, confusing the enemy fleet and drawing their attacks away from critical areas. The first wave of ships was neutralized without significant damage to the city. The aliens were stunned. They had assumed that brute strength and superior technology would dominate any human plan. But Kale's strategy proved that intelligence, adaptability, and creativity could achieve results even when facing overwhelming odds. Elira watched him closely, her admiration growing with each successful maneuver. "You are remarkable," she said softly. "Even I did not anticipate such quick thinking." Kale felt a surge of pride, but he did not allow himself to relax. The attackers would not give up so easily. As the second wave approached, he analyzed their formation and discovered a weakness, a blind spot in their sensor array that, if exploited, could turn the tide of battle. He directed the city's defense drones to target this weakness, and the effect was immediate. The attackers faltered, their coordination disrupted, and their morale weakened. Kale then made a bold move. He suggested sending a small team, including himself and a few elite alien defenders, directly onto the flagship of the enemy fleet. The goal was to disable their command systems and end the attack from within. Many of the aliens objected, citing the danger and the humans' supposed fragility, but Alira's voice was firm. "Kale has proven himself beyond doubt. If he leads this mission, it will succeed." With careful preparation, Kale and the team boarded a fast shuttle, navigating through the chaos of battle toward the enemy flagship. The ship was massive, far larger than anything Kale had ever encountered, with corridors that twisted unpredictably and guards that moved with precision and speed. But Kale did not hesitate. He observed patterns, memorized patrols, and used his agility and cleverness to avoid detection. Inside the ship, Kale led the team to the central command room. Using a combination of human improvisation and alien technology, he disabled the control systems, creating confusion among the enemy fleet. Lights flickered, weapons misfired, and communication broke down. The alien attackers were forced to retreat, their coordination shattered by a human mind that had seen solutions they could not imagine. When the battle ended, Kale and the team returned to the estate, victorious. The city and the estate were safe, and the enemy fleet had been routed. Aliens throughout Xylar Prime were stunned. For centuries, humans had been dismissed as weak and insignificant, yet here was a human who had outsmarted an entire fleet, saved thousands of lives, and demonstrated courage beyond measure. Alira approached Kale, her expression one of quiet pride and amazement. "You have done what no one believed possible," she said. "You have shown that humans are not weak. You have proven that courage, intelligence, and creativity can overcome even overwhelming force." Kale shook his head modestly. "I only did what had to be done," he said. "Humans survive. We adapt. We think. We act when it matters." The aliens who had once doubted him were now looking at him with respect, some even with awe. News of his actions spread quickly, reaching other civilizations that had long underestimated humans. Kale became a symbol, a living example that humanity was capable of greatness, resilience, and leadership. But Kale did not let the praise distract him. He knew that being human in a galaxy that underestimated him was not just about winning battles. It was about changing minds. He worked tirelessly with Alira to improve the city's defenses, train the alien guards in new strategies, and share his knowledge in ways that bridged the gap between human intuition and alien technology. Over time, the perception of humans began to shift. Aliens who had once sneered at the idea of a human leading, surviving, or innovating began to acknowledge that humans possessed qualities that could not be measured in strength or speed. Adaptability, creativity, and moral courage became recognized as valuable traits, and Kale's example inspired others to reevaluate their assumptions. Even Alira, who had been fascinated by humans from the start, found herself increasingly respectful of the species. She had purchased Kale expecting curiosity and perhaps amusement, but she had found something extraordinary, a being whose mind, heart, and courage defied expectations. One evening, as the city settled into calm after weeks of tension, Kale and Alira stood on the highest balcony of the estate, looking out over the glowing metropolis below. The twin moons reflected in the water of floating gardens, and the hum of alien technology filled the air. "You have changed the way the galaxy sees humans," Alira said softly. "What you have done here, it will be remembered." Kale nodded, a faint smile on his lips. "Then let them remember it," he said. "Let them see that humans are more than they ever believed. Let them see what we can do when we are given a chance." Alira studied him for a long moment. "You have earned more than respect, Kale," she said. "You have earned trust, admiration, and perhaps even partnership, not as a purchased human but as an equal." Kale felt a warmth spread through him. For so long, humans had been seen as weak, fragile, and unworthy. And now here he was, recognized not for what he lacked, but for what he possessed: cleverness, courage, adaptability, and a heart willing to fight for what was right. The days that followed were filled with collaboration, learning, and preparation for future challenges. Kale trained alongside Alira and her guards, sharing human strategies and adapting them to alien technology. He helped establish new defenses for the city, create communication systems that bridged species, and inspired confidence in beings who had long doubted humans. When other civilizations learned of Kale's victories and the role humans had played, they were forced to reconsider their prejudices. Humans were no longer weak. They were resourceful, brave, and capable of extraordinary things. Kale became a symbol, not just for the aliens of Xylar Prime, but for humans across the galaxy who dreamed of being recognized for their true potential. One quiet night, Kale stood in the garden high above the city. The stars were bright, the moons casting a gentle glow over the floating plants and shimmering water. Alira joined him, her expression serene. "You have changed everything," she said. "For humans, for this city, and perhaps for the galaxy." Kale looked out over the horizon, feeling the weight of what had been accomplished. "We will keep changing it," he said. "We will keep showing what humans can do, and we will make sure the galaxy never underestimates us again." Alira smiled. "I believe you will, Kale. I truly believe you will." And in that moment, high above an alien city on a distant world, Kale felt a deep sense of purpose. Humans had survived countless challenges on their home planet, had spread across the stars, and now had a chance to prove themselves in ways no one had expected. Kale knew that the journey was far from over, but for the first time, he felt the quiet certainty that humans were capable of greatness, and that greatness would be recognized across the galaxy. The moons shone down, reflecting in Kale's eyes, and for the first time he allowed himself to feel hope. The galaxy had underestimated humans for centuries, but that mistake would not be repeated. Kale had shown the truth, that humans were clever, brave, adaptable, and capable of achieving the impossible. And so, the story of Kale and humanity continued. A story of courage, intelligence, and the unbreakable spirit that made humans more than just fragile beings. It was a story that would inspire countless others, showing that even the smallest, most underestimated species could rise to greatness. The galaxy had seen what humans could do, and it would never forget.